Okay, let's take a look at some offense. And the Celtics were very clearly using the Memphis game plan. What was the Memphis game plan? It is, let's get into Mr. Klay Thompson, let's get into Mr. Steph Curry, and let's not really guard anybody else. And so when the Warriors play against this game plan, their passing, moving, and cutting can certainly force a lot of breakdowns, and it did force a lot of breakdowns in Game 1 against Boston. But as Memphis showed us, over a 7-game series, you can figure it out and adapt and clean up those breakdowns. And what it does to the Warriors is it kind of forces them into this isolation type of offense on the defensive terms, rather than playing isolation offense on their own terms with the spacing and the matchups that they want to attack. And when we're moving and cutting, when a team isn't guarding 3 players, it's kind of hard to find the open man because the spacing isn't that great. And the ball just kind of always ends up back in Draymond Green's hands, and it gets tough for us to make or find open shots. And so, yes, the ball movement, the cutting, it's fantastic, it's great, but it does just kind of make it harder to not realize that Al Horford hasn't been guarding Wiggins the entire possession. And so what I think the Warriors need to do, and they certainly did a lot of it in Game 1, but probably the keys to the series will be splitting Looney and Draymond and not playing them at the same time. Here, it's kind of hard to score when the guy who's getting the open shot can't make the shot. And so I think splitting those guys' minutes will create better spacing for the Warriors. And I also think they need to initiate more possessions with Curry and Poole and stay a little bit more spread so that they can see that Celtics are not guarding a handful of the Warriors players. And so here, Poole initiated the offense, draws 2 to the ball. Very obvious that Robert Williams isn't guarding Otto Porter, and the Warriors are able to get a good look. And here, playing in a really spread spacing, dare I say, looking like the Houston Rockets. They can exploit the big, which we'll certainly get into more in this video, and then the Warriors have a chance to play with a gigantic amount of spacing. I'd be curious to see what it looked like if this, with Iguodala, maybe this is Porter over here, and then we have Poole and Klay. I think that could be very difficult for Boston to guard. So it'll be up to Kerr and the coaching staff to find those lineups. We can see how much more space there is on the court. Iguodala had a chance at a good shot, and we can still get some movement and find some things and open up the floor for our star players. Just a couple interesting matchups I think the Warriors can exploit a handful of times in Games 2 and beyond. The Celtics did put Robert Williams on Wiggins to start the game, which I found very peculiar. But maybe they can find 1 or 2 times a half to create space for Wiggins to attack Williams. I also thought in the second unit, Grant Williams looked pretty shaky guarding Steph Curry. He had a hard time contesting his shots with those short arms, and I think Curry's a little too quick for him. I do wonder if Poole could beat Pritchard. Here, Pritchard does a good job on defense, but from what we've seen from Poole all season, it would make sense that giving him some space 1 or 2 times on Pritchard could be to the Warriors' advantage. Now, the huge Warriors' advantage is setting these ball screens. The Celtics bigs, Robert Williams, Al Horford, Daniel Theis, whatever you say it, simply can't contain Poole and Curry in these ball screens. And here you're going to see play after play where Curry and Poole are getting shots that they hit at a high rate and have been hitting at a high rate the entire season. So yes, the Warriors made a big emphasis to attack these matchups, but I think they need to do even more going forward into Game 2 and beyond. So you can see these bigs just simply sitting way too far back on these screens, giving Poole and Curry space to operate. To me, these are higher percentage looks than when Draymond initiates the offense and when Looney and Draymond are both on the floor. Here, as an example of those smaller lineups, I do like how the Warriors lineup forces Horford to guard Porter, and now the Warriors can play a little pick and pop game, which creates even more space on the floor. And then I also like how when the Celtics counter and get their bigs higher up on the floor, like Horford does here, it can trigger the short roll game with which both Draymond and Iguodala are so good at attacking. So we just saw Draymond on the short roll, here Iguodala on the short roll. To me, the Warriors are going to want to play some smaller lineups where they can attack that way. And then the Celtics even counter late in the game by switching Williams onto Curry. And this clip leaves no shadow of a doubt that Williams cannot hang with Curry. And so they're getting open shots there, which makes it tough for the Celtics. And even if the Celtics try to switch someone like Tatum, Brown onto Curry, we can still get the short roll there, and the Warriors potentially could still be able to beat that. So to me, those are some things that the Warriors did do to exploit the Celtics. I think they need to do more of that, and I think it's pretty obvious that that's what the formula is and what they need to do if they're going to be able to win this series.